Here's what a new gutter system costs, including gutters, downspouts, and gutter guards. Tap below to check now. Don't just replace.
Hey, good evening, folks. How are you? Happy Sunday for you Chiefs and Bills fans. I'll give you a heads up if anything happens. Bills are currently up 3-0. I'm a little conflicted in this game, just so you're clear. Tired of the Taylor Jason or Kelsey thing. So I don't know. And then obviously as a Patriots fan, not a fan of the Bills. So let's talk about what happened today. I want to take us back, though. A little context. Iowa happens. Trump wins big. Ramaswamy that night drops out, says, I'm behind Trump, gets on the plane, goes to New Hampshire. He's on the Trump train. And then, surprise, surprise, Tim Scott shows up and says, I'm backing Trump, and gives a pretty passionate Tim Scott-esque. Okay, by the way, I'm hearing Team Taylor, no slander. Okay, I'm done. Back to politics. So Tim Scott gets behind Trump. Now, I got to tell you, there was a lot of chatter about trying to get him before the South Carolina primary on somebody's team. But the idea that he got on a plane, went up to New Hampshire with Lee Zeldin and others, and he's out there, that was a huge, huge moment in this campaign. If you remember, think about the Dem primary last cycle. It was Jim Clyburn of South Carolina that got Biden back in the map after his campaign was sputtering. And it's Tim Scott, who I think it was a real big rebuke to Nikki Haley. Remember, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott was a congressman. There was a vacancy in the Senate, and she appointed Tim Scott. There goes, that was a big, big rebuke. And there was this clip of somebody telling Governor Haley that Tim Scott, and it looked like a deer in the headlights. She was like, well, we'll see. No, he was on a plane. He was on Trump's plane. There's no, we'll see. And then today, Desantis puts out that video. Now, a couple things that were interesting, and I was going to talk about this on the show tomorrow. There were some weird tells. He was booked on all these Sunday shows, Meet the Press, a couple others, I think State of the Union on CNN. And then yesterday, they pulled the plug on everything. And there's talk about pulling the spending, and like the money was apparently drying up. I don't know what was true or not, but here he is yanking himself off of these Sunday shows. There was something going on, and he said it was a scheduling conflict. I mean, I'm sorry, there's not a scheduling conflict. Everybody, it wasn't like they went, oh my God, it's Sunday morning and the shows that you booked yourselves on are suddenly gone. Something was going to happen. I don't know that anyone really anticipated this. The video, though, that DeSantis puts out was, it was like one of those, you watch it and you're going, okay, where's this thing going to go? Because he could do the Ted Cruz mode, which is just like vote your conscience, what Cruz did at the convention. Or he could say, this is, kind of do a Chris Christie and just walk away and do nothing. But he gets to the end there and he says, Trump is far superior than the current person, and I have my disagreements, but I'm getting behind him. That's number one. And then he goes right into Nikki Haley, right? Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. He says, we cannot go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. Oh my. That was a killer. Absolutely a killer statement there. And then obviously you saw Trump puts out a statement saying, Ron ran a great race. Suddenly, by the way, I get a kick out of the fact that it's Governor Ron DeSantis. I don't think he's called him Governor Ron DeSantis in like 3 years. But he says, let's go back. Ron ran a great race and all this stuff. And it's just, I'll tell you. And then he just pours more gas on Nikki Haley. So let's kind of talk about where we are. So it's Sunday night. Voting in the primary starts Tuesday. So what's at stake? In New Hampshire, let me just pull this back up just so I recall this correctly. But in New Hampshire, we are going to have a total of 22 delegates at stake. So remember, 1,215 to win, 40 were awarded in Iowa, and now 22 at stake. Trump's going to have this thing all wrapped up. So the month of January, we have 62 delegates at stake. In the month of February, a total of 80 delegates are at stake. And my guarantee is that if this thing goes the way I think it is, we're not going to get out of January. Trump will have wrapped this thing up. So let's look at where New Hampshire stands right now, just to give you a sense. There are 3 polls that have all come out in the last couple of days. One has it at 50, 35, 8. The 50 is Trump. The 35 is Haley. The 8 is Desantis. That's plus Trump 15. Then 50, 39, 6. That's Trump plus 11. And then this brand new one that literally is just a little bit fresher than the other one. 55, 36, 6. And the last number, obviously, the Desantis number, 19. Total side note, I brought this up on the show the other day. One reason that Desantis wasn't really campaigning in New Hampshire, yes, he wasn't doing well, but all those numbers, 8, 6, 6, there's a 10% threshold in New Hampshire. DeSantis hadn't hit a poll in double digits ever in the last couple of months. He wasn't even going to qualify for delegates in New Hampshire. At least in South Carolina, there's no threshold. So he had a better shot there, at least of picking up some, maybe the congressional district delegates, potentially like winning a congressional district, because they award them at large and then by congressional delegates, congressional district. But in New Hampshire right now, Trump, like I said, plus 15, plus 11, plus 19. And then just to give you some sense, there's only been one poll in January in South Carolina. And right now, Trump is up 59, 27, 25, 7. He's beating Nikki Haley by 30 points in her own state. Okay. Tuesday is New Hampshire. Then you've got Nevada. You guys always name check me on this, so I'm sorry. I keep slowing this down. Nevada. That is on the 8th. 26 delegates are at stake there, as well as, by the way, in case someone's looking for a junket, the Virgin Islands has a caucus that day as well. They get a handful of delegates there that you could compete for. I think Mike Bloomberg tried to play that game in the Democratic nomination process last cycle. You go down, it gives you a nice reason to go down to the Virgin Islands. And right now, with the temperature the way it is, might not be a bad idea. But just to be clear, the South Carolina primary is over a month away, the 24th of February. There is no way. This is how I see this thing playing out. If Trump beats Haley by more than 15 points, and I think there's a really better than not chance that that's going to happen, it is over. If she can't win or come close in New Hampshire, you can't do it anywhere. New Hampshire allows independents to vote and Democrats can register that day. And that's where she's pulling a lot of folks from. And let's be honest, there's no race on the Democratic side. Joe Biden isn't on the ballot. There are no delegates being awarded for Democrats. Okay. Thank you, Kelly. I guess Kelly's either from Nevada or she knows how to do it correctly. So I'm trying. I get scolded every time I bring it up. Someone says something to me in the comments, proof that I read the comments. And so I try. I'm on like step 8 of the 12-step program to say Nevada correctly. Anyway, you were the reason I started watching Newsmax, Runner Mom 23. Thank you. Well, hopefully now you know where to find me. YouTube, the First Network every night, Rumble, Apple. And like I've told people, if you will do me one favor, subscribe to all of them. And Apple helps a ton, but here on YouTube, spread the word. This independent media, myself, you've seen Tucker, Dan Bongino, and others. This is the way, but it only because of people like you guys who subscribe and share. This is why. And it's cool because there's no network that you have to worry about. There's no big lawyers that come tell me what I can and can't say. And there's nothing between us, right? It's you guys send me some ideas. And yes, by the way, Little Valley Acres Farm, it is true. DeSantis is done. He put a video out. That's what we're talking about tonight. So keep that in mind, that for all those reasons, if Nikki Haley doesn't do well in New Hampshire, where it's the least evangelical, it's the least conservative, and more independents and Democrats can run in it. What is she going to say going forward when you go to a state like even her own state of South Carolina? Higher evangelical population, more conservatives, closed primary. There's no way. She has to prove to the donors and the media that she has a chance. And the only way to do that is to get within 10 points. Anything more than that, it's a stretch. After 15, I'm sorry. And look, they're all going to say that they're in it to win it. And they have to. You can't call somebody and ask for money or ask them to ask him for money and then say, by the way, I'll probably drop out. No one's going to do that. By the way, Carter says, I was at the Desantis event yesterday at Hudson's Barbecue. Unfortunately, DeSantis was punchy and I left early. It was uncomfortable. I like DeSantis, but this is his time. Yeah. The thing that's interesting, by the way, is I have a feeling that he knew what he was about to do yesterday. You don't make these decisions lightly. And he probably went through the motions of, let's go to this event, see how I feel afterwards. But I'm reading Madison says, Nikki, give it up. Yeah. Look, this is going to become harder for Nikki Haley to come back from. You saw the statement from Trump and from DeSantis. I'm just telling you, this is going to be harder and harder for her to claw back. I'm just trying to look here in my notes. It is amazing, by the way, if you're looking at X, Twitter, the number of politicians who are now like, I'm endorsing Trump. I'm 100% behind him. It's like, man, profiles and courage, brother. But they're all going to get on board now. And I think this is going to really isolate Nikki. Linda, Daniel, all saying Nikki is bye-bye. She's gone. Kelly, this is so exciting. We've been waiting for this moment for so long. 3 of my Dem friends are voting for Trump. Look, it's funny. I was listening to some of the commentary today. Even Chris Sununu, who is backing, governor of New Hampshire, is backing Nikki. He was saying, look, this is how bad it is Trump is crushing Biden. And the thing that's fascinating is the Biden folks are doubling down on stupid. They still think that the economy's great and that it's our fault for not realizing it. He said the other day, people just don't know why it's great, also so good. And I'm like, they don't know it's so good because it's not good. The border's being overrun. Our foreign policy is a disaster. And you think it's our fault because we're stupid, that we don't know how great you are. By the way, it will be really interesting. You want to talk about something that's going to be fascinating to watch. I said Biden's not on the ballot, but they know that this could be a problem. So they're doing this write-in campaign because they don't want him to lose to Dean Phillips. But a loss is a loss is a loss. And I get why they played it the way that they did. But I'm telling you, this is if Biden gets shown up there, I know they'll say they weren't on the ballot, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm not on the ballot and then have an organized write-in campaign. It doesn't work like that. They are trying to play this on both sides, and the media is aware of it, that it's a write-in campaign. And so if he comes up short, it's going to be a problem. And Dean Phillips is going to make a big deal out of it. I think the media will make something of it. I know that they'll try to cover for him. But, that's it. I want to keep looking at some of the comments here. Do you think the Dems will throw Michelle Obama in for president? No. I've said this before. I don't think Michelle Obama wants it. And remember, as much as that might make sense, and I think the problem right now is there is a process and a system and a machine, right? So there is no competition. Biden canceled the, Mr. Democracy, and democracy's on the ballot and democracy is under attack. These guys are canceling primaries. Florida primary doesn't exist. New Hampshire tomorrow, no delegates are being awarded. They're doing everything they can to stifle any competition. The irony, of course, is not lost on a lot of folks, except the media, that for a guy who talks about democracy, this is how he acts. But he will then go, the only way to do it under the rules would be to go have something happen at the convention. And he would either have to get, they're not going to rebel against him. I can tell you, having been part of 2 conventions, the rules are made to make sure that nothing happens like that. So Biden, the only way that it would happen is something physically happened to him, or he voluntarily gave this up. Now, let me just be clear with you on something, and this is why I don't mean to be dismissive of the Michelle Obama thing. There is a big clash between the Obamas and the Bidens. Remember, Obama snubbed Biden, snubbed him, said, it's not your time, Joe. I can't even do a good Obama. I could do a Clinton. But anyway, and then Biden feels like, hey, I'm the guy who came back and did it, ran, and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't need your advice. It would never hand it off to them. Now, what I think he wants to do is hand it off to Kamala Harris so that he can say, remember, if you've written I wrote a book called Radical Nation, and I make the case in there that Biden's never tried to be like a president that says, I created more jobs. He wants to be the most progressive president ever. That was his thing. And so what does it mean to be that? It means to appoint the first LGBTQ person for this and to put the first trans person in that. It's all about being the new North Star to the progressive left, appointing people and doing things that now every future Democratic president, hopefully there are none, have to be able to say, God, I need to appoint 2 and 4. So I've done more, but Biden wants to set the placeholder. So why did he pick Kamala Harris? Because she was a Black woman. So he could say, I appointed the first Black woman to be vice president. I appointed the first Black Supreme Court justice. I appointed the first trans this, the first LGBTQ this, the first left-handed whatever. It goes on and on. It's all about identity politics. So he wants to be able to say, I made the first Black president, female Black president. That's what he wants. So he's not going to give it up. Now, will Kamala Harris get smoked? Yeah. Her own party doesn't like it. But I'm just telling you, if Biden has anything to do with this, this is what he's going to do. Hand it off to her. That's what he wants. All right, there's a couple. Let's just see. My hubby and I are retired. The higher costs are hurting all of us. I know. And that's the thing, is the Biden folks don't get that. They literally think we just need to understand more. Like it's our fault for not realizing how great he's doing. Linda says Kristi Noem for sure. I truly think she's coming in as VP. All right, Linda, let's keep an eye on that. She's on my list. It's interesting. You've seen a lot of chatter in the last 24, 48 hours. I'm interested to see how early Trump does this. You guys remember in 16, we were going to the convention. I remember getting on a plane, flying from Cleveland. Yeah, keep remembering where we were, to New York because Trump wanted to unveil Mike Pence as VP. And so that was pretty late in the process. I don't know. I think he names somebody early. Right? He's going to wrap this thing up way early. I've said this before, but I mean, there's a couple, you've not heard some chatter now about JD Vance. People throw Byron Donalds out all the time. And I'm just going to tell you, I think it'd be great. Remember, there is a Florida problem. It's the same thing with DeSantis. Not that that's going to happen, but you have an electoral college issue. The Constitution will not allow that to happen. So there's no way you're going to get are there workarounds? Could Trump re-register as a New York voter? Yes, but I don't see that happening. And so I'm just telling you, that's the deal. By the way, let me just get back to the delegate math for just a sec, because we had Iowa, all 40 there. We've got the New Hampshire primary coming up. January, as I mentioned, 62 delegates at stake. That's 2.55% of all of the delegates, right? You need 1,215 to win. February, 80 delegates at stake, 3.2% of all the delegates. March is the money, 1,592 delegates. Super Tuesday is March 5th, by the way. There are 47.3% of all the delegates at stake that day. 874 delegates are at stake on one day. That's a big deal. The thing is, if Nikki Haley, as I said, gets blown out Tuesday night, Trump's going to wrap this thing up before anyone walks out of New Hampshire. And here's the thing. There's 2 schools of thought. She says she wants to play on till South Carolina. That's 30 days after. Do you have the money in the back and to go? And that's the thing. DeSantis, by the way, realized that tonight. The money's dried up. Donors, rich people are generally not stupid. And they weren't going to keep paying with no path forward. And that's something he acknowledged in that video tonight. If he didn't have a viable path forward, he said, I can't continue to ask. That's true, but they also weren't going to give. They're not dummies. Most people who make that much money that they can, give you $1 million for your super PAC generally aren't dumb. And they weren't going to give money either if it didn't have a path forward. So so my point is, that's where things are headed right now. I'm reading a couple of these things. Yeah, there's a little bit of chatter Gorka says it's a guy from New York, a former politician. I'm not really sure. Youngman, what we're talking about. Tucker, I think. Look, there's a lot of rumors that that Tucker's being given serious consideration. Don Jr. was on my show Friday. He had responded really interestingly. I think we've pretty much ruled Nikki Haley out, haven't we? So for those people, I don't think that that's even a mere possibility. I think he's intrigued by Tucker. We'll see. It will be entertaining. There would never be a boring day. You thought Trump is entertaining? Tucker and Trump. There's a little back and forth about Larry Elder. I think, by the way, Ben Carson is someone I'd keep an eye on. And Tim Scott today, I think that his speech, endorsing Trump in New Hampshire and the way and the manner he did is putting him in a new category, and he's going to get a different look. I think I'm looking at here, Mohawks saying Elise Stefanik, Kristi Noem, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Totally agree. One thing that you'll learn about me if you watch the show is I don't always, I will tell you my opinion. I have nothing to hide. But part of this is sometimes it's like, I'm going to tell you who I think he's considering. That doesn't mean that those are my picks. Those are who I know that he's considering or what I think is going to happen in the process. But that doesn't mean I'm just based on who kind of the Michelle Obama thing. I'm just telling you that this way that the DNC and the Dem system is set up, how it's going to play out. I'm not saying that I don't disagree that the Dems base probably would love her. Just telling you, I don't think it's going to happen. Linda's saying I would bet on Kristi. Kelly, love Byron Donalds. Yeah, dude, can you imagine Byron Donalds? He doesn't take any flack, right? He's smart. He's a good messenger. I've gotten to know him well, and he's a fun guy too. He would make where is JD Vance from? He's the new senator from the junior senator from Ohio. He wrote Hillbilly Elegy and been a big Trump backer. Lizette is saying Carrie Lake. Look, I think that he likes Carrie Lake a lot, and she has been a hardcore MAGA supporter, but she's running for the Senate. And if she becomes the nominee of the Republican nominee, and they can't replace her, I don't know Arizona law, but let's just say she becomes the nominee. If you pull her off, that's a winnable seat. And there's a reason she's running, and there's a reason a lot of people got behind her early in a lot of the Senate leadership, because she can win that race. You take her and put her on the VP race, and suddenly, and again, I don't know Arizona election law, so can they replace her? I don't know. But if you took her off, listen, I got to tell you, having been there, folks, having a Republican House to get the policy stuff done and a Republican Senate to get your nominations through is critical. That Georgia seat that Warnock and took, can you imagine all these people that we could have stopped if we had gotten the Georgia seat? I mean, these nut jobs that have gotten appointed and barely gotten through, they would have been stopped. And all of the people that Trump got, the judges, all the great things that we talk about only happened because we had a Republican majority in the Senate. He needs a Republican House and a Republican Senate to get the nominations and the policy stuff through. That is critical. We saw the big difference between the first 2 years of Trump and the last 2 years of Trump. Without a Republican, and I mean, my God, the only reason he got impeached, that would have because we lost the House. So this is critical. Not just does Trump get back in the White House. Yes, there's a lot he can do through executive order, frankly, and the border and everything that he'll do there is because he'll have a Republican because of a lot of the executive stuff that he can do. But he needs a Republican House and a Republican Senate to get those nominations through. They have been working tirelessly, both the Heritage Foundation and America First Policy Institute, to create policy and names of people that that will fill a potential Trump administration. And so I'm just telling you, he needs these people in these positions to be effective. So just trust me on this. It's not a Carrie Lake thing or not. I'm just telling you that this is why it is so critical that that he have those things. But again, getting back to the point, if judges come from the Senate, yes, no, they don't come from the Senate. They're confirmed by the Senate. Linda, just to be clear, I think we might be saying the same thing, but I just want to make sure Yes, thank you. You're right, Linda. We're on the same page. Good. But if he doesn't have those, all these great things that happened largely happened because he got the agenda through. Lizette saying, I pray no more rhinos. I get it. And I think a lot of folks who have now seen what the difference between a Trump and a Biden administration is, the border, the domestic policy, the foreign policy, this is like, it cannot be any clearer. And the thing that's funny, I've talked about this before, but I want to make it sure because all of you folks who are so engaged, I'm sorry, I'm Linda and I'm watching Linda. She's saying, yeah, my bad. By the way, someone's saying, can someone expose who this nacho cheese Dorito head? I don't even know what that means. Having all of this go in the right direction for Trump is critical to getting this agenda done. But when you get asked by friends or colleagues, how are you voting for Trump? I can't believe you're voting for that guy. Really? What's going on at the border? You want to talk about the fentanyl? Do you want to talk about the terrorists? I mean, that's just the border. Then you talk about our economy. They're giving away the debt. He's literally trying to buy off kids by like erasing student debt that they know is illegal. The Supreme Court ruled against them and they still do it anyway. All of this stuff domestically. Then you look at foreign policy. For 4 years under Donald Trump, Russia didn't invade or annex anything. You know, it's the first time in how many administrations that hadn't over Republican or Democrat? Gaza certainly wasn't firing stuff in Israel. Houthis weren't firing missiles at our ships. We didn't have a disastrous withdrawal. 13 soldiers lost their lives. We left tons, billions of equipment. We lost a huge strategic asset in that base. Iran, China. I mean, in 3 years. So the next time somebody walks up to you and says, Fearsome saying, what the heck? I thought this was a cooking show. No, I am going to get to the cooking in a minute. Just, this is the windup. And then I'm going to tell you about it. I want you to get your oven preheated to 425. Then we'll get into it. So anyway, I think on the domestic front, on the international front, if somebody doesn't see that, and it's funny, I watch these shows and they literally, every time a Republican comes on, can you still vote for Donald Trump? And da-da-da. Wait a second. Where's the questions to the Democratic policymakers about a president who continues to have cognitive and physical issues? Do you guys see this today? By the way, they all went after Trump. I get it. He called, when referring to January 6th, he mixed up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi. Okay. I get it. I saw it. Yeah, he screwed it up. On a daily basis, Joe Biden does something like that, and they ignore it. One thing that Trump does, it's, oh my God, oh my gosh, look at it. He did this. Oh my, I just can't, it's amazing. These guys, one thing by Trump, and it's freak out. A million things by Biden, and it's like, you're being nasty and mean. Dalton's asking, would you be press secretary again if Trump asks? No. And I'm not, just before you jump to anything, I've said that to the president before. I was honored to do the job. I honestly loved the opportunity. And as you can tell, I still think that I'm going to support Donald Trump and do everything we can to make sure that he returns. Too much is at stake right now. But honest to God, it's a very intense position. And I've served over 25 years in the military. I've served 13 years in government on Capitol Hill or whatever. I've been on countless campaigns. It's a massive demand on your lifestyle. And for the first time in my life, I'm doing something I enjoy. I love being able to do this with you guys. I have a show, hopefully you all subscribing to. Thank you. And as I asked earlier, in case some of you just joined, if you could please do me a favor, go to Apple, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe and notification button. Go to Rumble, do the same. It's so important, critical for me, for the success of this effort. So I love doing this. It's fun. And when you're a press secretary, as I said to the dum-dums in the press corps all the time, you don't speak for yourself. You speak on behalf of a principal. So some people would get upset. Why not, Sean? Afraid of prison, big boy? Well, I am afraid of prison, just to be clear, but not for those reasons. I don't. I've enjoyed being able to do things with my family and myself, speak for myself, share my ideas, and so no, I won't go back. But that doesn't mean anything negative. Someone's writing Elise Stefanik for Trump VP. I definitely think she's high on that list right now. You saw her up in New Hampshire, and I think the president's been he's given some very big kudos to her. What she did on those, look, the president of Harvard and the president of Penn would still be sitting in their cushy jobs. Actually, they still have cushy jobs. You know that, right? The president of Harvard, who stepped down, is still making $900,000 teaching a course or something. I mean, I always thought that, these guys didn't do bad, but 900 grand, holy smokes. So let's not feel bad for them, but they would still be presidents of those institutions if it wasn't for Elise Stefanik. She will be a great asset to President Trump, and I definitely think she's doing thank you, by the way, Linda. I appreciate all of your kind thoughts. Kelly, appreciate as well. Holly, I don't know what's going on. It says message retracted. Did you take it back? Was it mean? I don't know. Would love to see Marsha Blackburn. Lizette says, yeah, you know what? I brought that up last week, and it was funny how many people that I know said, I actually really thought about what you said. I think that I've known Marsha Blackburn for a while. She's a very, very sharp woman. She's been out on the cutting edge of commerce issues, of tech issues. She would be a great asset to the Trump administration in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it would be VP. Maybe it would be at the Secretary of Commerce or something. I don't know, but she would be a huge asset, I think, to a Trump. Anyway, Eric Trump is VP. Wow, I think he's already EVP of the Trump organizations. I don't know where that fits, but I think he does a great job doing that, and I think he's going to happen. By the way, Doug Burgum will be Trump's Secretary of State, Mike Higgins. Okay, I'll tell you this. I think Doug Burgum's a smart guy. And very successful governor, very successful businessman. I don't know where he ends up, but I will tell you my guess, if I had to guess who ends up as Trump's Secretary of State, Rick Grenell. That's just my thing. Tulsi Gammard says, Rocky, here's why I don't think so, Rocky. I think the delegates, I think Tulsi, I watched Tulsi speak at a CPAC a couple of years back. She's very good. And I think as a Democrat, a lot of folks loved her. She's not pro-life. And I think the delegates would probably revolt a little. I think Trump could overcome this, but I don't think I'm not really sure what he gets. I freaking love Eric Trump, says Linda. Well, I'm sure Laura does too. But I think the beautiful thing is that I don't know what's going on. Is Eric Trump's fan club on here? Janet's on board too. I'll text Eric and let him know that everybody wants him to be VP. How about Mike Pompeo, says Jason? Look, I think Mike Pompeo was a great asset to the Trump administration. First as CIA director, and then as Secretary of State. The guy's brilliant. He understands Trump. The reason he lasted for 40 years is he's good at what he does. He's smart. He's really smart. And you notice he's always acknowledged. I mean, like nobody, you can not like Trump or Republicans or hate conservatives. Everybody acknowledges that. By the way, Rocky, I get it. He says point made, just a hunch. And I think, with Trump, that's sometimes it's the hunch that matters. So you very well could be right. Don't take it. I'm just giving you my take. And I think you may come back in 2 months and say, guess what? I was right and you were wrong. And I respect that. I'm just giving you my analysis of why I think it wouldn't work. But I also think that the beautiful thing about your comment, Rocky, is that Trump goes by a lot of, he has a gut. Linda, you have a serious question, then let me know. I'm reading. I think that Trump can look and feel an audience better than anybody I've ever seen in politics. You always hear about how he tests messages at rallies or whatever. He really has an instinct and a gut for where people are more than anyone I've ever seen. So if he may think that's interesting. Someone's saying, Linda, I get it. He says, I have a question. So I just tell me what it is. By the way, Jason, I like Mike a lot about defense secretary. That might be the thing. He puts Pompeo as secretary of defense. Remember, Pompeo first in his class at West Point. He would be a great SecDef. And then you put Rick Grinnell or someone at state. Yeah, Kelly says Trump can size people in 2 seconds. That's probably a second too long, but you're absolutely right, Kelly. He really has a good gut. Anyway, so that's where I think things stand. I'm just trying to look at my notes and see. I think the rest of this week, how TF Pompeo and make sport at the latest country. I don't know what TF means, Andrew. How TF was Pompeo. Could Trump call back generals that Obama let go? Could he call them back? That's an interesting question. I guess a theory. So if you're, I can't remember how it works. In theory, I guess yes. But because even when you're retired, you're in a stat. So I guess the answer to your question is, I guess he could. Candace Owens as VP. That would be interesting. I don't know that she's old enough. Is she 30? I don't know. I don't think she's 35. Will Trump get rid of Austin? Oh my, absolutely. Yeah, he's gone right away. So many good ones, generals, I think is what Linda's saying. Yeah. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think a lot of these guys, it'd be hard to say, hey, after 5 or 10 years, would you come back on active duty or something? Okay, Lou, I'm trying to figure out let me look back. I'm looking. Lou says he asked a question, but the way these things work. Holly says, can DJT 2.0 hit the ground running because he gets how DC worked from day one? And Neil said, yes. Great, Holly. That's a great question and a great point. When Trump came in, there was a group, and I don't think we realized the forces that were against us. The media, so many people by the way, I'm still looking for this other question. But you're absolutely right. It's a great point. The idea that he would know exactly who works and who doesn't. And that's why these other projects that the Heritage Foundation and America First Policy Institute are putting together, it's the people and the policies. He will, from day one, he's already said it, by the way, that he's ready to go day one. He joked, I think I had Bannon on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he had been talking to him, or who was it? And said that he's going to have a stack of executive orders to day one. Like, he's going nuts. He's going to get rid of all the Biden stuff. Boom. And so I think what you're touching on is a great point, because he will know the right people. He will know the right policies. He knows the system. He knows how to do it. And day one is going to be a flurry. I think he's literally going to give like a 10-minute inauguration speech, come back to the White House. We tried to do that last time, by the way. And you remember the press lied about him removing the bust of Martin Luther King. And then we spent the day on doing that because these reporters were so focused on getting Trump on day one that they didn't want to talk about the executive orders coming out. There's a couple really good things. I just want to, I would pick Rick Grinnell in charge of the FBI. Ooh, that would be a good one too. Cheryl's saying, yes, Candace is 35. Okay. I didn't know that. Candace would make it, Sebastian Gorka. Okay. I don't know who's saying that, because, you know what? I don't think, here's the thing. Seb, as you know, I was on his show last week. He's a good friend of mine. I can do a great Sebastian Gorka. Sean. Anyway, but he wasn't born in America, so I don't think he's eligible. Sorry. Sean, you should be press secretary. I missed your show on that. Listen, as I covered, I'll do this every day. This is better than being press secretary. I don't have to have Jim Acosta come after me. I get to answer. Look at these, how much I enjoy your questions, right? It's fun. I smile. There's no yelling. I always said every once in a while, I felt like an angry leprechaun yelling at these people. How soon will Haley drop out? Ed asked. Sorry if I already answered. I just got here. Ed, no, great question. Thanks for bringing that up. I think that, so for those of you who joined late, let me just get back to why we're on this. Because of everything that happened with Desantis and obviously the endorsement of Ramaswamy and Tim Scott before this, and then obviously Ron DeSantis dropping out and endorsing Trump tonight. I think if Nikki Haley comes within 10 points, she'll try to fight. She'll fight for another day. If she gets blown out by 15 or more, it's over. And I don't think that she will probably see the writing on the wall. If she doesn't, I don't know that anyone's going to care. Because if you can't win in New Hampshire where independents can vote, and just to be clear, historically speaking, independents have made up close to 40%, if not more, of the electorate for Republicans. So this is it. If you can't win here with basically a good almost half of the votes coming from non-Republicans and you're on the moderate side, then you can't win anywhere. It's over. So I'm just telling you that right now. If she can't pull it out here, then nowhere. And I think the Secretary of State of New Hampshire is predicting a record turnout. We'll see. I think that look, I gave you guys all those polls, right? So in each one of them, DeSantis 8, DeSantis 6, DeSantis 6. Assuming that like every poll right now is Trump at 50, 50, 55. If Trump, say that 3% of DeSantis' folks break for Trump, and I think at least that, they're not going for Haley. I don't think so. I mean, maybe she picked up 1 or 2 of the points, but that gets Trump anywhere from 55 to 60. That's a crushing defeat. She will be done that night. So Rocky says he's curious to know who be considered for AG. Great question, Rocky. I think that's going to be a critical thing because here's the thing about the AG. You remember I was there for Sessions, and then the choices that he that's going to be one that I think the senators are going to. He's going to be very. There's going to be a lot of senators, the Susan Collins of the world from Maine, who are going to be very, very quizzical of who his attorney general is and how they perceive their role, et cetera. So it's going to be a balancing act. Remember, it's who does Trump want, but who can get past the Senate. And so I think what you're asking is a great question. Probably like, I think Matt Whitaker, you saw him from Iowa. He'd been the acting. I would put him high on the list. People like him. He's smart. Did a good job as acting and earned some, he's just a really sharp professional, well-respected. I could see him. But it's a good question. And I'd love, if you guys have ideas. I'm trying to think. I covered the Byron Donalds one earlier, Gloria. Byron's from Florida. Trump's from Florida. You have electoral college issue. Again, is it insurmountable? If you recall, Cheney, when Bush named him to the ticket as the vice president, Cheney was living in Texas and registered to vote in Texas. And he had flown back to re-register in Wyoming to avoid that issue. So is it possible that you could avoid it? Yes. Just telling you that would be an issue. Bongino for head of Secret Service. Hey, you know what? That would be awesome. Although Dan is crushing it and he's a great voice. He's been a good friend and a mentor as I've done this. So I'd hate to lose him, but my gosh, what an asset to the Secret Service he would be as their leader. JD Vance for VP. Linda, she's going to get smoked. Isn't that what Chris Christie said on that hot mic? Bird brain. Where's that? Vivek went to, do you think Trump can actually win the general? Yes. I don't think it. This isn't look at the battleground polls. There's 8 states that this race is going to be run in. That's it. Let me just think if I can do this. Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, I think New Hampshire. What am I missing? Nevada. And there you go. I said Nevada right again. That's it. Those are the only states that you're going to see activity in. Trump says he's going to play in Minnesota and Virginia, and maybe he will expand. But I'm saying that's where if he picks off a few of those, it's game over. Kash Patel for AG. Kash is a good buddy. I think he'll be on the show soon. But by the way, Barb says I predict Haley doesn't drop out. She's too arrogant. I think I understand where you get that. I would just say that at some point, like Ron DeSantis saw the writing on the wall. The donors and the activists start to say, I'm not putting up any more signs. I'm not writing any more check. So let me just see. Cash for National Security Advisor. Interesting. Sorry, I missed it. No, Gloria, I'm not. I'm glad to repeat it. Don't worry. I just want to make sure everyone understands it because Byron's a great guy. He's a friend. I love how he takes it to town to some folks, and he's a great messenger. And anyway, I think he's a huge asset to the party. But you have a huge electoral issue that would have to be overcome. Mark Robinson, I assume Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, he'd be good. Linda loves Cash. Cash loves people who love him. Doug Collins, Chief of Staff, interesting, from Bill. Interesting. I will say, look, this gets back to Mark Robinson as VP. Okay, interesting. Look, I said this before, and I just want to be clear because I'm trying to remember who brought it up, and I apologize because now I'm a little back. But this idea of him hitting the ground running, this is going to be. I mean, like we maybe naively, but I don't think we fully appreciated the forces that were against us. And the uniqueness Trump was trying to bring together. He hadn't been elected before. He wasn't a governor that had a bunch of staff and supporters that had been surrounding him for years. This was literally a collection of people who wanted to serve the government and further the president's agenda. Not everyone, as we saw, enough of them, but he now knows who was there to further my agenda. And a lot of folks didn't fully appreciate that. When you get appointed by the president, you're serving his agenda, furthering his policies, not your own, not second guessing them. And I think they call this the PPO, the Presidential Personnel Office. The staffing of that evolved over his 4 years. And finally, there's a guy named John McAtee who led that at the end and made it very clear that if you weren't there to support Trump and his agenda, you weren't getting a job. And if you did, we were getting out. So Lee Zeldin is VP. Interesting. Lee's great. And he obviously showed through that race in New York. Someone's asking, what's your take on Trump's court cases and in prison in New Georgia? I think that there's going to be enough of a delay. I don't see this thing happening before. Leo Terrell, AJ, that would be fun. Oh my gosh. Anyway, all right. I'm keeping an eye on this game here. Chiefs are up. I'm sorry. I got to switch glasses for a second. 13-10 over Buffalo. Not that I care. If you missed the beginning, sorry. I don't really care about either team for different reasons. Patriots are out. Will Bannon come back or stay in the war room? Barb asks, I'm going to tell you, I asked Bannon that. If you go onto the YouTube channel, you'll see the Steve Bannon episode. I asked him that point blank, and he laughed about it, and he said he's not coming back in. Sorry, I had the same question, Barb, and I wanted to know, would he come back in? There were rumors that people thought he'd be a great chief of staff. Bannon's having a blast during the war room. And by the way, like it was one of a really fun episode of the show to have him on. So he was great, and I always go back and watch it. The one with Don Jr. was on Friday. That's a great one if you want to get a sense. Chris Miller will be asked, do you think actually I was talking to somebody about Chris Miller today, as a matter of fact. I do think he was the guy that was the acting Secretary of Defense in the last couple of weeks. He will play a role. I think there's no question. You know what? I don't know. Cam Heat 12 is telling me Kelsey scored. They always show. I was trying to stay with you guys, and now, yeah, okay. Now we've turned this into a football thing. What about Vivek? Good question. I'm intrigued by that. I don't know. If you're Vivek, do you want to be a cabinet secretary where for somebody who's been a successful CEO and entrepreneur like Vivek, and I'm putting out the Bannon episode for those people. It's in the chat if you want to click on it, but wait till we're done. I'll be interested. I would wonder if he'd want to do it. And the other thing is, just so you guys know, and this is like when you go into government, they make you divest all of your stuff. Now, luckily for me, I didn't have a lot of stuff to divest, so no problem. But if you're a guy like Vivek that has a lot of money and a lot of things, that's a big deal, and it takes a while. You remember like Steve Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross, like you spend money and time unwinding it. What's your take on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? I'm not going there. I can't. I don't know. I like to stick to politics. It'll get me in trouble. Ted Cruz for AG, that would be interesting. And the thing that's interesting is that when you are from a Republican state and the governor can appoint someone, that makes it easy. And that's always something that has to be considered. Can the governor replace the person? You're not going to, if you're a Democrat, if you have a Republican that's from a state where there's a Democratic governor like Kentucky, you're not going to want to appoint that person. But it's a great question. And also, so how big that Senate majority would be, because you'd have to make sure that you don't lose a vote while it happened. Okay, I'm not, a couple of these I'm not going to read because they're funny, but inappropriate. Anyway, I thank you guys for joining me on a Sunday night. I'll let you get back to the Chiefs and Taylor Swift and the Bills. Gosh, I'm reading some of these. Vivek has a huge persona too big for a cabinet post this, Cheryl. I think there's a lot of factors that would go into that. But anyway, thank you guys for joining on a Sunday night. I love doing this. I appreciate your feedback, your comments, your ideas. God, so there's some Chris Christie comments that I'm just going to leave in the chat, and you can read them if you want. I appreciate your support and everything you guys are doing. Thank you so much. And please, as I said, if you want to do something helpful, and it's the beautiful part is it's all free, go to Apple Podcast, go to Spotify, hit subscribe to the Sean Spicer Show, and then do the same thing on YouTube and Rumble. It really means a lot, the support, and it helps us with Cheryl Taylor. Who exactly? Give a shout out to my wife. Who's your wife? Cam 12, Cam E 12. Who's the wife? Let's go. Wait, too bad you couldn't answer, says Lou. Lou, I'm trying to find your question, buddy. Put it back in. Where? I'm scrolling. It's okay. Great ideas. Okay. Thank you, Sean. Okay, Ed. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ed. Barbara, thank you. I'm subscribed. I appreciate that. Listen, Lou, Lou P. I'm trying to figure out what it says. Too bad you couldn't answer. I'm sorry, man. I'm scrolling through all these chats. There's a ton of them, and I'm trying to see what your question is. This isn't a press conference where it's not like you're a Jim Acosta or one of these guys from NBC or something. I love you guys and the questions you have. I only watch your show on YouTube. Great. Thanks, Gloria. I appreciate it. Anyway, I will answer it if I can find it in the chats, but thank you guys. Have a great night. I'll try to do this next week if you're interested. Appreciate it. See you soon.